A senator just asked Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary nominee a yes or no question. Has there been a manufacturing boom in the United States? And the nominee, Scott Bessent, said yes. He said we're at the beginning of a manufacturing boom, and then the senator hit him with a fact that should disqualify him from ever holding public office. The United States has lost 72,000 manufacturing jobs since Trump announced his tariffs. Not gained, lost. 72,000 jobs gone in 8 consecutive months. And Scott Bessent sat there and called that a boom. He looked a senator in the eye, ignored 72,000 unemployed American workers, and claimed we're at the beginning of a manufacturing renaissance. While factories are closing, while workers are getting laid off, while small businesses are drowning in tariff chaos, Scott Bessent called it a boom. So this week, Senator Raphael Warnock from Georgia, a Baptist preacher who represents working families, spent 5 minutes absolutely eviscerating Scott Bessent for lying about Trump's economic record and dismissing the pain of workers who've lost their jobs because of Trump's tariff policies. Take a look at this and I'll give you my breakdown at the end.
Senator Warnock.
Thank you, Chair Scott, and welcome, Secretary Bessent. President Trump promised that his administration would usher in a, quote, golden age of American manufacturing. In September 2024, at a rally in my home state of Georgia, Donald Trump said, quote, we're going to have a manufacturing boom. Secretary Bessent, we're now more than 1 year into the Trump administration. Yes or no? Has there been a manufacturing boom in the United States?
There are the beginnings of a manufacturing boom. We have intentions, factory groundbreakings, sir.
So your answer to that is yes, there's been a manufacturing boom?
That we are at the beginning of a manufacturing boom.
Okay, you and I could agree to disagree. But more importantly, manufacturers are telling us something different. Manufacturers are struggling because of the president's policies, and that's what they keep telling us, and the facts keep telling us. In fact, just this past Monday, the Wall Street Journal published this article entitled, U.S. Manufacturing is in Retreat, and Trump's tariffs aren't helping. I request consent to enter this article into the hearing record. Mr. Chairman?
Without objection.
Secretary Bessent, do you know how many manufacturing jobs the United States has lost since Liberation Day in April 2025, when the president first announced his tariffs?
Yes, Senator, because you were out of the room, but it was already brought up.
We do many things, sir. I don't need you to tell me where I was.
72,000, and I will point out that the Wall Street Journal
72,000
is not called the Main Street Journal, and they care more about Wall Street than Main Street.
Sir, I'm not asking you to opine on the Wall Street Journal. I have 3 minutes. Just answer the questions that I'm actually asking you. So 72,000 manufacturing jobs, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Thank you for answering the question. Manufacturers shed workers in each of the 8 months after President Trump unveiled his tariffs on what he called Liberation Day. I would submit that it's a strange liberation and a curious freedom that leaves you unemployed. Even worse, smaller businesses are struggling to keep up with the tariff chaos. Big manufacturers may have the resources to shift suppliers. And I need you to understand the spirit of my questions. I spend a lot of time talking to the people in Georgia who've given me the great honor of representing them in the United States Senate. And so this is about them, and especially our small businesses. They don't have the ear of the president. They don't have access to Mar-a-Lago, and so they're not able to insulate their company from the worst of the tariff. Secretary Bessent, small businesses without the same resources or unfettered access to the president, what should those businesses do for the relief if they can't get into Mar-a-Lago?
Again, sir, small business confidence is up. And we are seeing that the one big beautiful bill gives the full expensing for equipment, factories, and ag structures.
They are telling us that it's more expensive to make basic things. We are moving in the wrong direction. The facts don't lie. The president lies often. but the facts don't lie. In fact, if you're saying we're at the beginning, basically your answer to those small businesses is wait a little while. Is that the answer? That a year from
You ask about manufacturing.
that's right.
So
I'm asking you,
I am saying.
I'm asking you about this manufacturing boom. Will we see
yes,
something different a year from now?
We are going to see it. I was just in my home state, Senator Scott's state, South Carolina, that we are seeing a boom there. And I believe Georgia has very good pro-business policies. I'm sure you will see a boom there also. The factory build intentions are quite high.
I'll tell you what I see. I see, as I talk to folks, that it's more expensive to build things in America. I see that we've lost 72,000 jobs a year into this administration. We've lost manufacturing jobs every month since he called for Liberation Day. And meanwhile, folks who are working in these small businesses trying to make their lives work, they're seeing higher costs. They're seeing their costs go up for groceries. They're seeing their costs go up for electricity. They're seeing their costs go up for health care. And I think the American people are still waiting for a solution. So far, we haven't seen one coming out of this Trump tariffs regime. The Baptist preacher is done, and I have no time left.
All right, let's talk about what you just watched, because this is gaslighting at the highest level of government. Scott Bessent just looked at 72,000 lost manufacturing jobs and called it the beginning of a manufacturing boom. That's not spin. That's not political messaging. That's a lie. And it's the kind of lie that reveals exactly how Trump's Treasury Department will operate. Deny reality, blame the media, and tell struggling Americans to wait a little longer for things to get better. Let me walk you through what Senator Warnock exposed in that exchange. In September 2024, Donald Trump held a rally in Georgia, Senator Warnock's home state, and promised a manufacturing boom. He said his administration would usher in a golden age of American manufacturing. Those were his exact words. And then in April 2025, Trump announced what he called Liberation Day, the day he unveiled his tariff policies that he claimed would bring manufacturing jobs flooding back to America. So Senator Warnock asked Scott Bessent a simple yes or no question. Has there been a manufacturing boom in the United States? And Bessent said, there are the beginnings of a manufacturing boom. We have factory groundbreakings. So Senator Warnock clarified, your answer is yes. There's been a manufacturing boom. And Bessent said, we are at the beginning of a manufacturing boom. Okay, so Bessent is claiming we're at the beginning of a boom. Now let's look at the facts. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, the United States has lost 72,000 manufacturing jobs since Liberation Day in April 2025. That's not over several years. That's in 8 months. And it's not just one bad month that dragged down the numbers. Manufacturing shed workers in each of the 8 months after Trump unveiled his tariffs. Every single month. For 8 months straight, American manufacturers have been laying off workers. And Scott Bessent calls that the beginning of a boom. Senator Warnock pointed out that the Wall Street Journal just published an article this week titled, U.S. Manufacturing is in Retreat and Trump's Tariffs Aren't Helping. And Bessent's response? The Wall Street Journal is not called the Main Street Journal, and they care more about... And then Senator Warnock cut him off because Bessent was about to launch into some talking point about how the Wall Street Journal doesn't care about regular Americans. Think about how insulting that is. The Wall Street Journal publishes documented evidence that manufacturing is in retreat. The Federal Reserve, Trump's own Federal Reserve, publishes data showing 72,000 lost jobs. And Bessent's response is to attack the messenger, to suggest that the Wall Street Journal and the Federal Reserve are somehow biased against Trump. That's not leadership. That's denial. And Senator Warnock made a point that I think perfectly captures the cruelty of Trump's economic policies. He said, I would submit that it's a strange liberation and a curious freedom that leaves you unemployed. That's exactly right. Trump called it Liberation Day. He said these tariffs would liberate American workers from unfair trade practices. And the result is 72,000 people losing their jobs in 8 months. That's not liberation. That's economic devastation disguised as patriotism. But here's where Senator Warnock really drove the point home. He said, even worse, smaller businesses are struggling to keep up with the tariff chaos. Big manufacturers may have the resources to shift suppliers. And then he made it personal. He said, I need you to understand the spirit of my questions. I spent a lot of time talking to the people in Georgia who've given me the great honor of representing them in the United States Senate. And so this is about them and especially our small businesses. That's leadership. That's what a senator is supposed to sound like. Senator Warnock isn't asking abstract policy questions. He's asking on behalf of the people he represents. The small business owners in Georgia who are struggling, the workers who've lost their jobs, the families who are seeing their costs go up while their incomes go down. And then Senator Warnock said something that should make every American angry. They don't have the ear of the president. They don't have access to Mar-a-Lago, and so they're not able to insulate their company from the worst of the tariffs. That's the key. If you're a big corporation with lobbyists and lawyers and direct access to Trump, you can get exemptions from the tariffs. You can shift your supply chains. You can absorb the costs. But if you're a small manufacturer in Georgia, you don't have those options. You can't call up the White House and get a carve-out. You can't afford to move your entire operation. You just have to eat the costs. And when you can't, you lay off workers. So Senator Warnock asked Bessent directly, small businesses without the same resources or unfettered access to the president, what should those businesses do for relief if they can't get into Mar-a-Lago? And Bessent's answer? Small business confidence is up, and the one big beautiful bill gives full expensing for equipment and factories and structures. That's not an answer. Senator Warnock asked what small businesses should do if they can't afford the tariffs and don't have access to Trump. And Bessent responded with a talking point about tax policy. Full expensing for equipment doesn't help you if you can't afford to buy the equipment in the first place because tariffs have made your raw materials 25% more expensive. And Senator Warnock pushed back. He said, they are telling us that it's more expensive to make basic things. We are moving in the wrong direction. The facts don't lie. The president lies often, but the facts don't lie. Let me pause there because that's an important statement. Senator Warnock, a Baptist preacher, a man of faith, a senator from Georgia, just said on the record in a Senate hearing that the president lies often. And he's right. Trump lies about the economy. He lies about manufacturing. He lies about job creation. And Scott Bessent is sitting in a confirmation hearing repeating those lies because that's his job now. Senator Warnock then asked, I'm asking you about this manufacturing boom. Will we see something different a year from now? And Bessent said, we are going to see it. I was just in South Carolina. We are seeing a boom there. And I believe Georgia has very good pro-business policies. I'm sure you will see a boom there also. The factory build intentions are quite high. Factory build intentions. That's what Bessent is hanging his hat on. Not actual factories, not actual jobs, intentions, plans, maybes. Meanwhile, 72,000 real people have lost real jobs in the last 8 months. But Bessent wants us to focus on intentions. And Senator Warnock wasn't having it. He said, I'll tell you what I see. I see, as I talk to folks, that it's more expensive to build things in America. I see that we've lost 72,000 jobs a year into this administration. We've lost manufacturing jobs every month since he called for Liberation Day. And meanwhile, folks who are working in these small businesses trying to make their lives work, they're seeing higher costs. They're seeing their costs go up for groceries. They're seeing their costs go up for electricity. They're seeing their costs go up for healthcare. That's the reality. That's what Trump's economic policies are doing to working Americans. Everything is more expensive. Jobs are disappearing. And the Treasury Secretary nominee is telling them to wait a little longer because we're at the beginning of a boom. Think about what Senator Warnock is describing. These are people who are trying to make their lives work. They're not asking for handouts. They're not asking for special treatment. They're just trying to keep their businesses open and their workers employed, and Trump's tariffs are making that impossible. When you're a small manufacturer and your raw materials suddenly cost 25% more because of tariffs, you have 3 choices. Raise your prices and lose customers, eat the costs and lose money, or lay off workers. Those are your options. And Scott Bessent is sitting in a Senate hearing telling you that small business confidence is up and you should just wait for the boom. Senator Warnock ended by saying, I think the American people are still waiting for a solution. So far, we haven't seen one coming out of this Trump tariffs regime. I'm a Baptist preacher and I have no time left. A Baptist preacher. Senator Warnock identified himself that way because he wanted to make a point. As a man of faith, as someone who has spent his life serving people, he's watching Trump's policies hurt the people he represents. And he's calling it out. The president lies. The policies are failing. And 72,000 Americans have lost their jobs while the Treasury Secretary claims we're in a boom. This is what gaslighting looks like at the cabinet level. Scott Bessent knows the numbers. He knows 72,000 jobs have been lost. He knows manufacturing has shed workers every single month since Liberation Day. He knows small businesses are drowning, and he's telling senators, and by extension the American people, that we're at the beginning of a manufacturing boom. That's not optimism. That's not confidence in the future. That's a lie designed to protect Donald Trump's political narrative at the expense of working Americans who are suffering right now. And this is who will be Treasury Secretary, a man who will look at 72,000 lost jobs and call it progress. A man who will tell struggling small businesses to wait a little longer. A man who will attack the Wall Street Journal and the Federal Reserve for publishing facts that make Trump look bad. Senator Warnock represented the people of Georgia in that hearing. He asked the questions they would ask. He challenged the lies they're being told. And he made it clear that the facts don't lie, even if the president does. Like, subscribe and share this everywhere. Because Scott Bessent just showed us exactly how Trump's Treasury Department will operate. Deny reality, gaslight the public, and protect Trump's narrative no matter how many Americans lose their jobs.